Welcome to VSB News Online for Monday, December 1st. I'm Peter Cattell. As World AIDS Day is being universally commemorated, Bermuda reports some 300 known persons living with HIV. Taiwan De Rosa, Assessment Officer at the Department of Health, says that Bermuda is not yet out of the woods. But with education and improved medication, we are managing.
We first started having cases in 1982, and at some point in the 80s, we were up to 64 cases per year. We're now down to approximately about 6 cases being diagnosed each year. So I would say that we are definitely managing the HIV epidemic in Bermuda.
Has education helped?
Definitely. Education and harm reduction. Initially, our cases were in injection drug users. We're not seeing that anymore. More education does need to be out there, and that education doesn't necessarily have to come from schools or from the Ministry of Health. Everybody needs to be responsible for getting the message out that most of our cases, if not all of our cases in the most recent years, are sexually transmitted.
How do you transmit this information to the younger people?
That's a very good question. We've tried using social media. We've tried going into the schools. We brought in speakers. And those that are ready to hear the message will hear the message.
And those who aren't?
Those who aren't will keep getting the message until they're ready to hear the message.
Now, there was a time then there was quite a hype about it. That seems to have died down. Why?
Yeah, well, the HIV situation has evolved. With the advances in treatment, people aren't dying from HIV anymore. So you're not really seeing people ill with HIV disease. There's actually a movement to move away from the term AIDS. We have persons that had HIV disease. They became ill, and through treatment, they're now back living well. So because of that, kind of the fear has gone away. But what we need to do is let them know that HIV is still around, but it's more of a chronic, livable, manageable condition. So to kind of put it in the realm of diabetes and heart disease, and so that it's not constantly in your face, but you do know that it's aware, that it's around.
Health Minister Jean Atherton has informed Parliament that her ministry is planning a crackdown on the poor operation of residential homes for seniors and the manner in which alleged abuse is handled. The move will include 3 inspections a year and the creation of a complaints register.
We are currently reviewing the Residential Care Homes and Nursing Homes Act and regulations, and have instituted regular monthly meetings with the administrators of residential care homes to encourage them to collaborate and share information. Additionally, we have implemented a process of the monthly reporting of complaints to have an ongoing complaints register. Further, in terms of visits and inspections, changes have been made to the residential care facilities visiting process, so they now occur 3 times per year, 2 scheduled and 1 unscheduled. This process will assist with ensuring that all homes comply with the requirements and the legislation. I have concerns about the current practice of NOSPEC being responsible for the licensing and inspecting of care homes, and also being the recipient of complaints for those same homes. In my view, these roles should be separated, and I've asked staff how a separation can be accomplished. We at the Ministry will also be focusing on improving the quality of care being provided at residential care homes. We have to be concerned about both the physical environment of facilities, but at the same time, we need to ensure the quality of care of the highest standard. Our legislation speaks mostly to staffing levels, environmental conditions, and the physical environment provided at homes, but the quality of care provisions are not sufficiently strong. We will be discussing with administrators the benefit to be gained by introducing care quality standards through legislation or by establishing a certification or accreditation program for residential care homes in Bermuda. In this way, we can ensure that facilities that provide residential care for our most vulnerable populations are of the highest possible quality.
Tension has risen again between the island's taxi operators and the minibus fleet after drivers of the buses have been found using the restricted taxi parking stands to solicit passengers. Transport Minister Sean Crockwell told VSB News' Brian Darby that he plans to confront this and other anomalies in the conduct and pricing of the rival forms of transportation.
We are very cognizant of the fact that when you look at the minibus industry and the taxi industry, that there is some inequality there. And as a result of that, there's always been some tensions because the taxi drivers, operators, they have to pay a much more substantial licensing fee, and the minibus is much cheaper. And so they expect to have priority as it relates to the sort of general public in trying to hire their services. And in recent times, there's been some antagonism in certain areas where minibuses have actually been parking at taxi stands soliciting a business. That is prohibited in relation to their permits, and we have to ensure that we don't allow for that type of behavior to escalate issues. And we do appreciate that we have to bring regulations. The taxi industry is regulated through legislation, whilst the minibus is regulated through policy. So we need to bring those regulations here, look at fee structure, look at the various rules and regulations. We certainly don't want to restrict, but we want to make sure that we are fair across the board. And so I am waiting for a report from the Public Services Licensing Vehicles Board to see how I should move forward.
And in that area, you've got obviously control policy changes. Would you impose any fresh law or legislation?
Oh, the intention is to bring regulations when we come back to the House to regulate the industry. The industry has grown, so you can remember when the previous administration introduced minibuses, it started off with buses that were just servicing areas that didn't get proper service as it related to buses, the major buses. And it's now grown to a major industry, very valuable, particularly during the cruise ship season. But now that the cruise ship season is over, they're starting to compete directly with taxis with their normal business.
Concerns that the Morgan's Point development might be having difficulty raising the funds necessary for its major conversion of the former U.S. naval base into a five-star resort and residential village appear to be unfounded. The company announced at the weekend that a group of Bermuda international insurance and reinsurance companies have expressed their interest in investing, and that Arch Capital had started the ball rolling. VSB News' Brian Darby has the story.
Morgan's Point, the company is developing a high-end hotel and residential complex at Morgan's Point in Southampton, has announced that it has received a commitment in financing from Bermuda-based international insurer and reinsurer Arch Capital Group towards the cost of the first phase of the project. This calls for an 84-room boutique hotel, 147 residences, and a marina. Arch's investment, with an initial tranche of $5 million, represents lead financing from a group of other Bermuda international insurance and reinsurance companies who have expressed their interest in a similar agreement. It was noted by the company that information regarding the other insurers and reinsurers who will be investing in Morgan's Point will be made public before the year's end. Preston Hutchings, Senior Vice President and Chief Investment Officer at Arch, said the company was pleased to invest in the first phase of the Morgan's Point development. This is a project, he said, that is important to Bermuda's residents and businesses. Its success will benefit both our shareholders and our employees. Once the project's plans are fully prepared, submitted and approved, we expect it to be in position to expand our commitment. Brian Darby reporting for VSB News.
The major world airlines serving Bermuda may be running out of patience over the island's so far dismal attempts to improve the passenger loads on their planes during the off-season, and will be making even more cuts in service in the months ahead. This was the message delivered in Parliament by Shadow Tourism Minister Zane De Silva over the weekend. VSB News' Brian Darby had put the same point to Bill Hanbury, CEO of the Bermuda Tourism Authority, earlier.
What's their feeling when you talk to them?
They believe that we've got to improve demand. They want to be supportive of Bermuda. They love the legacy connection to Bermuda that many of them have, but they're business people, and they will change capacity based on demand. So if we don't continue to improve demand, we are not going to have the air capacity that we need. And so it's the chicken and the egg. And our marketing team, A tremendous amount of effort is going on to improve demand in the marketplace, improve Bermuda brand, not do short-term retail one-offs, but to improve the fundamental brand that is Bermuda. And the monies are being expended in that area so that at the end of the day we improve demand and get more airline visitors, which for us at BTA is the #1 criteria of success.
Just because the Fairmont Hotel's use of computer-based questionnaires to help it select new employees has been accepted by governments of Bermuda for many years does not make it fair. That, at least, is the view of Shadow Minister of Internal Affairs Walton Brown after his recent criticism was termed ingenuous by Minister Michael Fay.
Irrespective of whether or not an issue has been out there for a long period of time, it remains the case that if there is a perceived injustice, if there is a perceived level of unfairness, then it needs to be addressed. I've only been the spokesperson on immigration matters for a few months now, and when I receive information that concerns me, that is connected with the apparent denial of fair treatment of prospective Bermudian employees, then I have an obligation to raise it and to have it addressed. Simply because something has been in place for a long time and not addressed doesn't mean we should be silent to the sense of injustice that might prevail around it. And so it is important to have it addressed. It is important for Fairmont to provide some sort of a response, because if you have people who are eminently qualified for positions and their inability even to secure an interview based on a computer decision is problematic in and of itself. The effect that it's been around for a long time is irrelevant. There are lots of injustices that have been around for a long time. It doesn't mean they should not be addressed.
When Rudolph and Friends opens at the Masterworks Museum of Bermuda Art this weekend, it will be more than a Christmas exhibition about that red-nosed reindeer. Tom Butterfield, the museum's founder and creative director, tells VSB's Charles Webb it will highlight the contribution to Bermuda by its creator, Arthur Rankin.
Rudolph is a universal character, and it was really a blend of someone else's lyrics and song, and then Arthur Rankin's idea of turning this reindeer into animated character, and then putting the two together and creating the world's first Angie-matic. And he's become iconic. I mean, I can't think of a person that I've talked to, no matter what part of the world that they're from, that they don't know or have heard of Rudolph. My sense is, and I hope that I'm not offending any Bermudians, but my sense is that Rudolph is better known in China than Bermuda. So it's an opportunity to say, let's go, Bermuda. We can, repackage Bermuda through Rudolph, and that there's something here to see that's, of cultural benefit. We are very fortunate to have had Arthur Rankin make Bermuda his home, his domicile, and he became a Bermudian. So as a result, we have some of the artifacts here.
So how can we better educate Bermudians about Rudolph?
Well, by coming to the museum, that would be a start. And by understanding that in the United States, there is a stamp issue. When you think about that, that's 300 million Americans who are suddenly looking at the icon Rudolph through a stamp. And that CBS, I saw this last night, is using Rudolph in some of its advertising. So CBS has a huge following. And so you sort of put the two together and you blend Bermuda's population of 60,000, which can barely fit a football stadium, and yet you have a huge environment saying Rudolph is somebody that should, or something, or an animal, let's call him somebody, who should be celebrated. I think Bermuda should embrace this and say we are very fortunate that we have this opportunity.
The Bermuda Audubon Society found that Christmas can come early today when the members of the Coral Beach and Tennis Club presented a check for just over $22,600 to go towards the continued maintenance of the Alfred Blackburn Smith Nature Reserve to the west of the Paget Club. The money was left over from the legal fund put together by several members to help pay the legal fees during the recent receivership. It is the hope of the Coral Beach members that the Audubon can return the 8-acre site to its original glory, full of endemic Bermudian plantings, for all of Bermuda to enjoy. And now we turn to Earl Baisden, all the way from the Central American and Caribbean Games in Veracruz, Mexico, for today's Sports Report.
Welcome to VSB Sports. I'm Earl Baisden reporting from Veracruz, Mexico. The 22nd Central American and Caribbean Games came to a close last evening in Veracruz with Bermuda sailor CC Woolman carrying the flag. However, the biggest news coming out of Veracruz, Mexico was that of the report sent out to the media and the Bermuda Olympic Association by Chef de Mission Donna Watson. Watson is quoted as saying in her release, "This has not been the best performance from Bermuda at these games. I thought we would come away with a few medals, especially after we made our stamp at the games in 2010, coming away with 6 medals. Watson went on to say, "I was very disappointed with Tyrone Smith's performance, a former Olympian, world champion competitor, and defending champion. I expected him on the podium and definitely to make the finals. The 3 medal performances were not out of his reach. I thought Roy Allen Birch could also get us a medal. Ranked second going into the 50-meter freestyle final, I figured he would be on the podium. I believe our 2 young competitors, CC Woolman and Cameron Pimentel, gave it their best in sailing, as this their first experience at the senior level. 2 of our cyclists did not finish their event. Our lone equestrian had a few challenges with her horse in this, her first competition, and our team sports were very disappointing," end quote. Meanwhile, CC Woolman and Cameron Pimentel took to the waters for Day 5 of the Central American and Caribbean Games sailing event on the waters of Veracruz. Day 5 was the final day of competition, with only 1 race being sailed. Pimentel recorded his best finish. He sailed to a 3rd place finish, which saw him finish 10th overall with 74 net points. Woman finished 10th in the one and only race that saw her finish 7th overall with 64 net points. I'm Earl Baisden reporting from Veracruz, Mexico for VSB Sports.
Thanks for watching VSB News Online for Monday, December 1st. I'm Peter Kitzel.